Hello, and welcome back to the Colorado Color Company YouTube channel. Today I'm going to demo the bow tie pattern. Here I'm beginning with some Supernova. It's a quadrant pattern. I just have it in the claw grabbers there. It just came out of the kiln at about 1050 degrees. And I have a pre-flared blow tube that is 12/7. I like the 12/7 for these larger attachments. It allows me to build a little more heat into the handle and into the tubing while I'm doing this first seal. Later on I'll bump down to some 9/5 as a handle, which is a little easier to spin. But for now I want the meat in the handle. Just drop it down and get it straight here on the roller. See, it's flopping around pretty good, and I'm just stopping at the high point and kind of letting gravity center this thing out. So there you go, I got it pretty much on center here. Now I'm gonna just make sure there's no kiln dust on it, and then I'm gonna attach a handle to the other side. Again, it's a pre-flared blow tube. Flare these just on the C3 bench roller with the True Flame working jacks from Scott Griffin. And here you just want to build more heat into the tubing because it is thicker, and a little less heat into the flared handle. Once you get a good seal on there, I like to throw it on the roller and just make sure that it's straight. Now that we have a straight piece of tubing between our handles, I'm going to go in and I'm going to stretch these ends out, and I'm going to start adding my spiral. The bow tie is just a spiral reversed and torn in half. Pretty basic pattern. It is nice. You do get two identical balls out of this. So, you know, pretty good one. The whole process took about 20 minutes, so each ball takes about 10 minutes apiece. So pretty quick, easy, cool pattern. So here I'm just adding heat into the meat of the tubing and stretching it down a little bit and just starting my twist, starting that spiral. If you don't do this, you might get big, weird, loose terminations on the end of your spiral, which when you go to tear the spiral in half, you'll have some, you know, big loose things in your pattern that aren't ideal. So you can see right there, I've started my spiral. Take it to the roller, get it straight, and I'm just gonna do the same thing to the other side here. And you're gonna wanna spin the same way as you spun before. Some people spin one way, some people spin the other. It doesn't matter which way you spin this up, just as long as it has a nice even pattern through it. So once again, just heating the meat of the tubing, stretching it down a little bit, and just initiating that spin. So here you can see I have the two spins initiated, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to heat this whole thing up, and I'm going to spin it up into one big spiral. I'm using a GTT Mirage. It's on a foot pedal, so it's nice hands-free control. And I have the Mirage outer fire just raging for this. I'm trying to get it as hot as possible. It's a pretty big chunk of glass. And yeah, once I see that heat base start to really glow, I'm gonna start initiating my spiral. And I'm just you know, as I'm rotating, I'm just dragging my left hand a little bit, and I'm just spinning a little faster with my right, slowly adding that spiral in there nice and even. Ideally, you're gonna have the perfect spiral all the way through, and that's gonna transfer into your bow tie to have really nice even pattern. You can see here the pattern's kind of folding. This is pretty normal for patterns. The viscosities of the color are different. The trick is just getting it ripping hot, and I'm kind of off screen there, but once I puff this out, it's going to take all those inconsistencies out. But you have to take it to that point where all the color is collapsing, and some of the colors aren't going to collapse as fast as others, so you're going to see those ridges, and once you go to puff into it, it should even out if you have enough heat in there. So now that I kind of got it evened out here, I'm going to go back, add another heat base, and further round it out. Little off camera, but yeah, just doing the same move, coming in, rounding everything out. And there you can see I'm pretty close to a nice football shape. The ends are still a little folded, but that's not a big deal, because when I rip it off right here, I'm going to remove the handle in my right hand. Just gather up some of the glass there. And then from this stage, I'll be able to really round this ball out. So there you can see football shape. And then these terminations are really important to spin while you're picking out the termination. If you're stopping and picking, it's going to pick the termination out straight. So you can see here I'm spinning the tubing as I'm picking, further adding to that spiral pattern there. If you just pick and stall out, you're going to get the tubing's going to straighten out, and you're going to have a big straight termination, which isn't ideal for these bow tie patterns. Again, we want that nice even spiral throughout the whole ball. So here's where I can kind of go back in and really round this side of this out, using a lot of heat, dumping a lot of heat in there. GTTs are very hot torches, really good for getting glass hot. So hot, in fact, you can get stuff too hot and you can boil color. So I'm riding the line of, you know, uber hot right here. You can see it's flopping around, I'm juggling it, but this much heat is really gonna allow me to get that wall nice and even. A little puff of air there is gonna round it out. Take it to the roller, just make sure it's somewhat close. Stopping at the high spots, letting gravity do its thing. So now that I got it somewhat close, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna pop a hole. And you're gonna wanna pop this hole right in the middle of the ball. You can see here where I popped the hole. And then I'm just going to use a pencil reamer, and I'm going to come in and I'm just going to open this up to about the size of the 9.5 handle that I'm going to jump down to. So the next step here is to punny to the front of this, and then we're going to rip off the other handle, and we're going to do another termination on this other side here. And once again, as I'm ripping this off, I'm constantly spinning in the same direction that spiral is going. If you stall out, you're going to get a straight termination, and it's going to look funny in the end product. And then here I'm just going to do a little pick and roll on this termination and just finalize the pattern here. Boom, and once I got that out, I jump to the back of the flame. This right here is where you will burn out color. See, I jumped way into the back of the flame. You have exposed color right there in that termination, and if you chaz it, it's toast. So you want to be real gentle till that gets nice and hot. Once it is hot, you can go in and you can dump as much heat as you would like into it. But just that initial pick off, when there's a little nub, it is very sensitive. So you want to be sure to baby that in. But again, once it's hot, you're ready to rock. So here I'm using a Sophietta to add some air and just round this out. So you can see there, I'm punting to the side. I have my hole ready to accept the 9.5, and this is what we would call reversing the axis. So I'm gonna add this handle and reverse the axis on this ball. Little puff of air on my seal, pop the punny off. Whoop. Make sure it's nice and straight. And you can see there I have two nice terminations and a pretty good spiral between them. That's ideal to have the end pattern come out looking good. So here's another technique for popping a hole on center. So I'm just spinning the glass in my hand and I'm just picking a thin spot ever so gently right in the front. And once I have that, I'm just gonna pop a little hole using air. And you can see that hole is dead center with my handle. Now I'm gonna use the true flame working jacks, and I'm just gonna use one side of them, and I'm gonna open up to about 9.5 to accept another handle. Here I'm gonna add a earplug just so I have air pressure. So once I get this handle on there, I can blow into it and make sure that seal's worked in. Ideally, these seals are going to be one touch. You're going to get everything perfectly hot. You're going to come in, give it just a little puff, and that's all you need. So the next, you can see there. So now I've reversed the axis and I'm handled up with 9.5 on each side. And the next move here is just to rip this thing in half. So I am just adding heat directly in the center of those terminations. I do actually like in the finished product to pick those terminations all the way out. Once they get stretched out and elongated, it takes that exposed color and it elongates it and it makes it easier to burn out. So we are going to fully remove those terminations from the end product. There is a little waste in the middle here. So start with a little more material than you think you need. I just kind of grabbed whatever we had sitting around. This piece of tubing is a little big. These balls came out pretty big, but depending on what you're doing, you just go bigger or smaller, If you want a small ball, you use less material. If you want larger balls, you use larger material. So you can see now I kind of got it dog boned out. Those terminations are kind of drawn out, and I'm just going to cut this in half. Boop. And I didn't have a kiln going near me, so I just threw that on the bench. I will reheat it later in an annealing flame so I can finalize the termination. And there you can kind of see the pattern starting to form. And then this process here is really important. This one you don't want to spin. So you can see there I'm going back and forth instead of continuously spinning one way. If you spin one direction, you're going to put a spiral in the front of this pattern, where while we're picking this out, we want to go back and forth with our hand so we keep this termination nice and straight as we draw it out. And I'm removing the glass all the way past the exposed color and actually creating a new termination right in the front of this ball. So now that I got that termination looking pretty good, I'm gonna go just round this out, even out all the wall weight. Ideally, when you're working, you're gonna find a wall weight that you like to work in. Some people work a little thinner, some people work a little thicker. It's all about, what you're comfortable with. So I'm gonna reduce this ball down to the wall weight I like to work with, which, is usually between like 1 or 2 mil, I would say. It's not an exact science, of course, but after a while you just kind of get a feel for how much weight you have in your hand, how thick the lines are in the line work pattern. If you have thin balls, your lines are going to be spread out more. If you have thicker balls, your lines are going to be more concentrated and closer together. So that is kind of one way to tell how much glass you have is, oh, there's the finished product. And now I'm going to heat this other one up in an annealing flame here while I let this finished one set up. Just giving it a little inspection, making sure everything went well as it cools down. And it's looking pretty good. Hey, yeah, smiling. I think I'm happy. And again, the bonus of this technique is you get 2 balls. So if you want 2 matching sides to a piece, or 2 caps, it's just a bonus that you get 2 identical balls from this technique. And same thing here when I go to pick this out. I'm going back and forth with my hand. I'm not spinning one direction. You can do fun stuff with the front of these two. You can pull it out and wigwag it a little bit. Maybe we'll cover that in another video. The spirals don't look great. If you were to just spin one way and pick that off, you're gonna get a spiral, and it's not the greatest thing, but I have seen people, if you pull that out and throw some kicks in it, pretty cool little like wig-wag bow tie. And then here I go again. I'm just dumping heat into this ball, trying to get it to match the size of the other ball and the wall weight, so they're identical. And here I'm going back and forth. You can see my hand. I rarely go the same way unless I'm trying to spin something up. The majority of the time it's a couple rolls forward, a couple rolls backwards, a couple rolls forward, a couple rolls back. Tends to keep the glass more even than rolling in one direction constantly. So here I'm just putting it on the roller, getting it straightened out. A couple puffs of air. And then, again, I've mentioned this before in the videos, little maneuvers. You don't want to take this and try to do that all in one heat. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to do a couple heats to round this out. I'm going to reduce it, expand it, reduce it, expand it a couple times to get that nice even wall weight. And there, I think I'm finished. Let's have a look at these balls. So that is the bow tie pattern. From here, you just punny to the front of that, open up the back, and you can encalmo it into whatever project you're working on. And there you can see the 2 matching bow tie patterns. Cool, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.